All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. I am Adam Benigni, WGRZ-TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, as always. Back to work today over in Pittsford after a Bills training camp workout. Lots to get to today, but congratulations again, Sal. I know your daughter was married on Friday. How did everything go?
Yeah, it was an absolutely spectacular day. Spectacular night before with the welcome event party and rehearsal dinner, and then the wedding was just beautiful. We had it on Canandaigua Lake, right in the middle of 90 degrees and awful last week and 90 degrees and awful to come this week. We fell into this perfect little pocket of brilliant weather. So it was great. She was the happiest bride, the most gorgeous bride ever. And I killed it on Mr. Brightside and Born to Run. So it was a good night, a good time had by all.
And you predicted this, but I have to ask, did you shed tears?
I walked her down the aisle and was good. But then at the reception, when she danced with my father to his and my mother's favorite Sinatra song, that's what got me. So, excuse me, a little teary there. And then I had to go dance with her when I had tears in my eyes. So, but otherwise, I held up pretty good.
All right.
You know, I had to practice the year before with my youngest, and I cried walking her down the aisle. So I got it out of the way, I guess.
Well, we were thinking of you, so I'm glad to hear everything that went so well.
Yeah,
and all right, we also should mention here, it's been announced, it was announced at the first of the month, new presenting sponsor this year in FanDuel, and that is a big deal. FanDuel has you covered with competitive odds and tons of betting options, game parlays that let you get creative. FanDuel's deep SGP menu is deep and impressive, so you can really build some fun combinations and player performance as well as game outcomes. Just remember to bet responsibly and have fun with it. So it really is a big deal for Believe, this show, and so many others across the league to have this caliber of sponsor with us this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We're thrilled to be with them. It could be nothing but good things in the future, I hope. So welcome to FanDuel. Thanks for having us.
All right, this is Believe in Bills, and as I said, we have plenty to get to today. And let's start with James Cook, who elected to not practice today and has at the very least indicated to reporters that he doesn't plan to practice, well, moving forward at whatever point. Look, we thought this was all kind of settled in terms of, we all understand his contract situation, what he wants, that the Bills aren't willing to do that right now. Bills with no comment afterwards. I didn't anticipate anything like this. I thought the matter was settled, at least in terms of the short term, and that he was going to do the smart thing and play to the best of his abilities this season. What's your take on this, and what's the latest you can tell us from over there?
Yeah, it came as a complete surprise. As he showed up at mini camp because he didn't want to get fined, because you can get fined if you miss those. And then he came into training camp, same thing. If you don't show up, you do get fined. But now that he's here, Adam, he has reported to camp. He can now have what they call a hold-in, and he's not going to get fined. So, you know, he kind of has – he's regained a little bit of leverage in this battle with the team to get a contract extension. Now, look, do I think it's the best thing he could be doing? No. Could it work? Maybe, although I don't think it's going to. I think the Bills are going to say, hey, either you play or you don't. I mean, you know, they'll be prepared to move on if they have to with Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, and they'll bring somebody else in, or whether it's Darrington Evans, who knows. So, yeah, he's making a statement today. It came as a surprise because McDermott read off a lengthy injury list before practice, which we'll get to. And then we just went out to practice, and he was dressed in a white sweatsuit and a cap, and we assumed it was a vet rest day, and maybe McDermott just forgot to mention him, because actually he didn't mention who was getting the vet rest days that I can recall. So we just assumed no big deal. And then it was after practice. It wasn't me, but someone else in the reporting group asked him, hey, what's up? And he said business. And then that immediately piqued some interest, and a couple other people gathered in, and he wasn't giving up anything. So we'll see. Maybe it's a one-day thing, Adam, but maybe it becomes a little more contentious than we thought it was going to be.
Well, he was asked about moving forward, and he responded the same way. That was his one refrain, business, and no comment from the Bills.
Yeah, the Bills aren't going to comment on it.
I don't know. I mean, I guess, look, you outline the leverage and what of it there is with regard to this move. I don't think it's a smart one by him. Unless there's more in the way of discussions. But if the Bills flinch, I don't know. There's just a lot of implications based on how this potentially turns out. And we can speculate in all of that. And I guess my question is, I do feel like if they do decide to move on, and this is putting the cart before the horse, but it does bring about this discussion, as you alluded to. If they did decide to move on from him, right, how much of a drop-off are we talking about? Because I do think that's measurable. I think regardless of his business sense and how he may or may not or appears to be handling this at this particular point, I do think he brings a lot to the offense. And there is, you don't just necessarily replace what he brings, I guess is my point.
Look, if you were just measuring him as a player, of course, he probably deserves a contract extension. The problem for him is he plays a position that has been devalued in the NFL. And guys like Khalil Shakir and Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard, who got contract extensions, his draft classmates, they all play positions that are more valued. And the Bills wanted to lock those guys down. It's unfortunate for running backs. I mean, back when we were growing up, Adam, the NFL was run by the running backs. It really wasn't the quarterbacks. They were the stars, but that's not the way it is anymore. So he is bucking tradition here, and he's trying to be an outlier. And I understand that he wants his money. He thinks he's worth it. And like I said, if you measured him just as a player on this team, he's easily a top 10 player on this team. He's terrific as a running back. But his leverage it's tough because of the situation with the devaluation of running backs in today's NFL. And if you're right, I don't think the Bills are going to flinch. If he doesn't want to practice and play, then he won't. And then once the season starts, he will forfeit game checks, and they'll move on with Ray Davis. I mean, we're seeing Ray Davis out here. He is not the same player that James Cook is. I'm not trying to say that at all. Sure. But he is a running back that they could plug right in. And I've said this for a long time, Adam. Pretty much the easiest position that you could fill out is running back. You can get running backs anywhere, and you put them behind a good offensive line with a great quarterback like Josh Allen, they're all going to succeed. So he's got to keep that in mind before this gets too far along.
Right. Even though I do think he was key in elevating this offense. Right.
He was.
I'm how Joe Brady would use him to the proportion we saw last season and the success that they ultimately had. But I understand your point. I mean, this is business. This is, I suppose, precedent in a lot of ways if you're looking at it from the Bills' perspective and what they're willing to do in a tough situation like this. And I don't necessarily see this working for James Cook in terms of the contract that he would want. All right, let's get to, you mentioned.
And I do see him pushing the envelope here. I'm sure his agent, I'm not even sure who represents him. I don't even know. I forget. But I'm sure his agent has said, look, this is a tool we have in the toolbox to use because you're not going to get fined if you conduct the hold-in. You're there. You've reported to camp. So they're exercising their option, I guess, right now. But I don't see it lasting too much longer because also, you don't want to be pissing off Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. They're trying to get ready for a season here. They're already dealing with a ridiculous amount of injuries. They don't need their star running back to just not practice and get ready for the season. So I don't think he wants to go down the road of getting these guys too pissed off. And then, hey, come next year, they will cast him away. This is a team in a Super Bowl window. They need their guys. And if he's going to be a team player, he should get back to work and work out his contract stuff next year.
Don't you think he's already pissed them off?
Well,
with taking it public the way that he did, and now this.
That's true. And the Bills won't say that specifically, but you know damn well they were not happy. Well, Bean sort of alluded to it. He would prefer that hadn't happened. Understandable that it did, but now he's making a very public statement by doing this. And like you said, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, the Bills are not going to. I'll be very surprised, Adam, if this guy gets a contract extension this summer. I would be very surprised.
I would be too. All right, you mentioned the injuries. And I've got the full list here. I don't know that we necessarily need to go through the whole thing, but obviously the update on Khalil Shakir, right? Such a key component of the offense with a high ankle. And we're talking, multiple weeks there. And same deal with Max Hairston, the rookie corner as well. Your take on, I guess my question is, we can talk about both those guys, right? But, and whoever else you'd like to. But, and we kind of put it in the right perspective, I think, on our last show when, it's camp, whatever, there's plenty of time to recover from this and it gives other players reps and that sort of a thing. But at what point does it begin to impact the beginning of the season, I guess is my question.
Yeah. The Hairston injury to me is the more pressing one because he's going to be out probably a month when it's all said and done. And then you wonder with a knee, is he going to be able to recover even when he gets back? Is he going to be the same player, same speed and agility? He better be, because that's why the Bills drafted him. The Bills drafted him for that incredible speed that he had. And it's just like Cole Bishop last year, and Sean even made that point today. It was about this time last year that Bishop got hurt, and it wiped out the rest of his training camp. And then, that means part of the session's over at One Bills Drive when they leave here. And that sabotaged his whole season. I mean, he was fighting to be a starting safety last season. And if he had the full training camp and done well in the games, he probably would have won the job. He never really recovered in that camp battle with Hamlin until late in the season. He finally started getting on the field. There was Hamlin and Rapp both missed some time, and he got into games that way. And then in the playoffs, he was playing pretty regularly. But it wiped out a good chunk of his season. We're in the same spot with Max Hairston now. I mean, you need these reps in training camp. He's going to lose a month's worth of them. Mm-hmm. And Tre'Davious White is here. Now, you and I had speculated right along that it was probably going to be Trey White in week one as the starter. Now, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I can't imagine that Max Hairston's going to come back in time and beat out Trey White. So if Trey White stays healthy, he's going to be there week one opposite Christian Benford. And then you hope that Hairston is recovered enough to be able to get on the field and, and take some of those reps during the game and maybe play special teams, whatever. But yeah, it's looking like the Cole Bishop situation all over again.
Right.
And then on Shakir, I can just point out.
I was just going to go there, right.
Yeah, I mean, Shakir, that sucks because he's their best receiver. But this is the right time to have that happen. They don't need him to really be doing anything in the summertime or these preseason games. So if I'm the Bills, I would treat that with kid gloves, high ankles. We all know those are very tricky and they can last a long time. So give him all this time off and make sure at the end of, all the training camps and everything, going into week one, hopefully they can get him ramped up to play. But I wouldn't mess around with that at all. He's not going to be hurt by missing reps in training camp because of that.
There's no question about if he's on the same page with Josh Allen or any other, part of the Bills offense or whatever. But it's obviously, it does raise a level of concern. And with the length of that injury list with some fairly impactful names on it, I mean, it does affect what's happening at a fairly critical time in terms of their overall preparation for the season.
Yeah, well, we can go over a couple on your list there, but I will point out, too, there was some good news today. Spencer Brown was actually on the field for the first time. He was just doing positional drills and some conditioning, but, he was back out there. He had the pads on. Terrell Bernard was also back today, limited basis. So those are two really important players that they're starting to get back, starting to ramp up. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot here in the next few days, and I doubt they're going to play in that first preseason game, maybe the first two games. But it was good to see them back. But there are a couple other guys you could point out to me, and I'll give you some updates on the ones you want me to if you'd like.
I mean, I guess some of the, for example, like a Dorian Williams, for example.
Yeah, still out, and not sure. Like I told you last week, he was in a boot, so that is a little more serious than they're letting on. So yeah, they're missing him. I'll say this: Balin Spector, Mr. Injury himself, was out there today, and he had a good day. I saw him make one turnover play, and it seemed like he was holding his own pretty well. So that's a good sign for him. And Milano's still out there doing his thing. So, but they are down. I mean, Bernard didn't do teamwork today, so they're definitely light at that position right now.
And just some of the other names or whatever, again, you're talking as far as receivers go, Samuel and Palmer, right?
Yep.
And I suppose Bishop and Rapp should be discussed as well, too, right?
Yep. Bishop, again, got hurt late last week, I believe. Might have been the day that I was off, not here. Quad injury. So that's probably one of those tricky ones, too. Taylor Rapp apparently must have hurt his knee in the thing at Highmark Stadium, because that was the last time he practiced. He was in civvies today, walking around barefoot, in fact, doing his Mac Hollins impression out here. So there's your two starting safeties and your starting, well, maybe a starting cornerback that weren't working. I don't think it's too serious on a wrap. At least it didn't look like it. He had a wrap on his leg. Didn't appear to be limping too badly. So that might just be a precautionary thing.
All right. Anything else you want to add here before we move on to?
Palmer was back, but he wasn't doing anything today. It wasn't like he wasn't in team drills. It was good that they got Elijah Moore back after he missed a couple days. So that was good. One guy who stood out to me, Jalen Virgil, who, he's in competition. If they keep 6, he's got a chance. If they keep 5, he doesn't have a chance, I don't think. But what you forget about that guy, because he made some plays today. He burned, in fact, on one play. He just blew past Dorian Strong, the rookie, for a touchdown from Mike White, I think it was. He was active for 7 games last year. You forget about that. It wasn't just the 3 practice squad elevations you get. He actually was elevated. He played 7 times. So that's a guy you can keep an eye on, maybe. I don't think they're going to cut Curtis Samuel. I mean, even though he hasn't done anything here at camp, it just costs too much money to move on from him. So he would be the one guy that might be vulnerable of the ones we all thought would definitely make the team, and where Virgil could sneak in. But I can't see the Bills eating that money to move on. So Virgil's going to have to work it, and if they keep 6, they'll have a chance.
All right. So that incorporates the receiver and safety positions. Again, more to that list, and we'll see how things develop as the Bills continue on with training camp. All right. We would be more than remiss if we did not mention that as we record this today, it is Marv Levy's 100th birthday. Amazing. As he hits the century mark. And I know we had him on before the AFC Championship game, and I know that Believer posted that today, so people should check that out. Good. He had been in Canton, Ohio, celebrating, and I think he had an autograph signing today back in Chicago, right? So, I mean, he's obviously still active, and he gave such a great interview when we had the chance to talk to him ahead of and I know you alluded to that in the article that you wrote about Marv and celebrating his 100th. But, I mean, what a figure. In terms of sports figures that I've had the opportunity to cover over a 3-decade career, he is high, very, very high on that list.
Oh, yeah. He's my all-time favorite Bills coach, but just, such a great man. And, he's just an amazing career in so many different things, not just football, but just his entire life. He's a fascinating character, and it worked out good today, Adam. I'll tell you, let me give you a little backstory, a little inside the ropes thing, because of my daughter's wedding. And it was very busy at training camp last week. I let it slip through my fingers, Marv's 100th birthday. I should have had something written and prepared. I should have done more interviews. And it was actually Chuck Lester, who I talked to this morning, who had reminded me, he said, how come you haven't called me about Marv? Because he's always looking for, he wants to talk about the old days, Chuck does. And he sent me a text this morning. And here's the backstory. I showed up at camp today at 7:45 in the morning, forgetting that today was the lone late morning, early afternoon practice. So I was here 3 hours before I had to be. Great, right. Could have been laying around all day. But that afforded me the opportunity to sit down and write this Marv Levy story. I did that this morning. So I called, Chuck texted me, and he had 3 pictures, the ones that are in the story, that he texted me. And I said, hey, stay right there. I'm going to call you back. So I called him. I did a phone interview. He gave me the lowdown on what happened last night, gave me a few quotes. I pulled some quotes from other things I've done in the past. I put that story together in 90 minutes, Adam. And I had the opportunity to do it because I was stupid and showed up here at camp 3 hours early. So it actually worked out great. I felt bad. because of my daughter's wedding, I just couldn't get to it. And I got the opportunity and cranked it out. And I used our interview because that was the only chance. I couldn't call Marv today because he wasn't home, because we have his number, but I couldn't call him. He wasn't there. He was, traveling. And then he had a card show autograph signing, crazy, 100 years old. So it worked out great that I used our interview and Chuck Luster, and I just pieced it together like a professional would. And we've got something on the site today. Now we're talking about it. So we've done Marv proud, I hope.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that was a phenomenal interview that he gave. I think he opened with, I got my ankles taped and ready to go before we started. We actually were recording. It wasn't part of the formal thing. We included that anyway. And I know so many people were moved by it. It was great to have that opportunity to do that. Couple of Marv stories before we wrap it up, right? You go first, and then I've got a couple I want to share with you with regard. But I mean, just moments that stand out, because there's so many, having covered him for so long.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite Marv moments were just, the press conferences. I mean, it's not like today where McDermott just sounds like a drone up there, the same boring stuff that he always says. Marv was always interesting to talk to, not only in the press conferences, but just as a guy off to the side. He would give you all the time. He loved to have conversations, not just about football, but life in general. And Sean does that too, I shouldn't say. Sean's a good man. I enjoy talking to Sean away from the podium as well. But the funniest thing with Marv, and we all knew it when we were on the beat, that the jingling of the change. Do you remember that, Adam? Whenever he was up there and you knew he didn't want to say something and he was going to tell a little bit of a fib, he started doing the Humphrey Bogart, the jingling of the change in his pocket. And we would all look at each other and say, yeah, he's full of shit right now, isn't he? We know he's lying because he's going to jingle the change. But yeah, those are the things that I remember, just the press conferences and all the fun quotations and, the going off on tangents. And what I really enjoyed too was listening to the players recount some of their Marvisms, because they're the ones that are hearing it all. They're in the meetings and they're listening to all this stuff. So they always had the best stories about Marv, not us, because we didn't have the same access to him.
I wonder if he was jingling the change when he gave his age before coming to. That's legendary stuff, how he fudged his age. And so that to maintain his marketability and all of that. Couple of stories, one sort of personal and one professional. Beginning of my career back in 1992, so this was after the first Super Bowl. I'm a Cub reporter in Syracuse at WSTM, the NBC affiliate there. And I think we had probably just met, Sal, at that particular time. But this was in the preseason. I think it was a preseason game at Indy. And we were driving a couple of hours over from Syracuse for a walkthrough. And you'll remember back with those guys and that cast of characters and the Marv Levy walkthrough, there was a lot less walking and a lot more throughing, right? Yeah. And so we might have been 15, 20 minutes later, whatever. We show up, players are gone. So here we are. I drive over with a photographer. Again, just at the beginning of my career, I get over there and I'm going to come back empty-handed, right? And after sort of a lengthy argument with then PR director Denny Lynch, Marv is out for his run after the practice. And before, I guess, they were going to travel that particular day or whatever. And he convinced them or whatever. And Marv comes down and gives me a one-on-one interview at the foot of the tunnel there in Orchard Park. And when I thought I was going to come back, empty-handed, I returned from my news director at the time, his perspective, like this conquering hero. You came back with a one-on-one interview with Marv, and it was the graciousness, I guess that's the point, right? Yeah. I was in a tough spot, and after, he'd let it walk through and gone for his run, he took the time, 10 minutes to do that. It just speaks to, and we all know about him, the class, the generous aspects of him, the person that Marv Levy is. And then I would go to 1997, which was it speaks to something you mentioned earlier. My first year in Buffalo covering the team, and the end of the season game there at Green Bay. I'm sure you were at it. Steve Tasker's last game. Yep. We knew he was done and he got kicked out.
Yeah, it wasn't really his last full game, right. That's for sure.
Yeah, it ended early for him. That was also the Lonnie Johnson fake punt game, but I digress. At the end, and I'm sure you were in this scrum at the time, we're talking to Marvin. I believe it was Chris Brown at the time, he was working for WGR Sports Radio. Now he is, of course, play-by-play voice for the team. He was the one who asked Marv if he felt like he was still having trouble reaching the players, and Marv admitted that that was the case. And we both kind of looked at each other and we kind of knew then that Marv was set to retire. Because of, you mentioned the Marvisms and the quotes and the way that his very unique personality, how he was able to reach those players. And you think of that locker room, right? It would take a very special head coach to be able to connect with them as he did. And the thought of, looking back on that, him admitting that in a post-game interview would speak to how crucial that was for him and such a key component of his success, the way he was able to reach the players at that time.
And you know what he always used to say too, if you're thinking about retirement, you've already retired. So
right.
That's what he used to say. And he was obviously thinking about retirement that day, and he knew it was time, and he did.
And by now, he, of course, came back as general manager and wanted to coach again. But Ralph Wilson was.
Yeah, he wasn't doing that.
Well, Sal, you still there?
Yes, you froze up on me, and I must have frozen up on you, but we're back.
Yeah, all right. So I was wondering what was going on there. I had a power supply issue earlier, which is why I turned around briefly during your response there. But I guess, that's the point. And again, he wanted to coach when he came back as general manager. He still had that fire, and it had rekindled. Yep. But, Ralph Wilson ultimately did not let that happen, at the time.
Yep. Yeah, it was probably good too. I don't think it was the right
stage
move to make. Yep, absolutely.
All right. So
although that led to Dick Duran, which
yeah, we don't
have to go there, do we?
No, we don't need to recount that particular era, given the one that we're in right now.
Yeah. So rest in peace, Dick, who was also was a very, very nice man who just passed away. But yeah, those 4 years did not, or 3.5 years did not go well for the Bills.
All right. That's going to do it. Covered a lot of ground today. Happy birthday once again, Hall of Fame head coach Marv Levy, 100 years old today. So for Sal Maiorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, I'm Adam Benigni, WGRZ-TV Sports Talk Live Buffalo. This has been Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.